Welcome to They Are Waiting for Us from Forbes Books, the podcast that explores how education can transform lives and communities, featuring conversations with change agents who are making a difference in education, from parents and advocates to teachers and leaders. Here's Dr. Lisa Andrew.
Thanks for joining me for my conversation with Taylor Shead, the CEO and founder of Stemuli. We've been talking about her remarkable transformation from a college basketball player to a visionary entrepreneur and becoming the 94th Black woman in history to raise over $1 million in venture capital. So Taylor, let's dig a little deeper into Stemuli. And I know many of our listeners are educators that could be interested in your platform. But how did this idea come about? And why did you decide to focus on this part of the education ecosphere?
You know, what initially inspired me to start Stemuli is me literally failing out of college with the idea that I don't want anybody in the next generation to experience that same weight of what it feels like to make it and then immediately fail. You know, the second part of your question is how did you figure out which end of the industry you're going to focus in? Education is really large, right? So when I moved back to Dallas, it's been about 10 years since I've been back in Dallas now. I was called by somebody again from the Dallas Independent School District because they saw my LinkedIn profile. And in this profile,
they plug said, for LinkedIn. Make that a healthy, creative mode profile. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They said, we see you have a technology business in Dallas. We're creating this new program where we're bringing together industry partners, community colleges, and our high schools. And we want to see if we can accelerate the time it takes students to move from high school into the workforce. And so this program was built to get a student their credentials like an associate's degree before they got their high school diploma. But the other thing they would get in process is internship, apprenticeship, job shadowing experiences. So they would know what they wanted to do. They would fall in love with the company, again, graduate ready for the workforce. When I went in that first year, I was working with those kids. And by the end of the year, I'm like, who are you excited to be? Tell me about the favorite field trip you went on. And all of them looked at me and said, Miss Taylor, all we know is you and Stemuli. And so at that point in time, this school district was partnered with companies like American Airlines, IBM, Southwest Airlines, JP Morgan Chase, GameStop. I can go down the list. It's who's who, right, of our American Fortune 500. And ultimately what I said is even a program designed to produce transformative results still struggles with access and equity. And so at that point in time, it's I convinced them over a 1.5 year period of time that they needed to utilize technology to ensure access and equity was reaching every student. And so a lot of the work we do today is just about workforce development, but the undergirding of it is access and equity. It doesn't matter what zip code you live in, you should have an equal access to an equitable education.
Yes, I see. You're like a promo. Our documentary that I spoke about is called Zip Code Red.
Okay.
And that's what it's about. Depending upon what zip code you live in, those are the amount of resources and access that you get. I think we're like sisters from the universe or something.
Yeah. Well, I love the code red. You know,
yeah.
That's kind of an allusion to something that's illegal now, right?
Right. Exactly. It's, zip code red, and got to call it out and look at it, do something. We're not ignoring anymore. So yeah. So why 3D immersive games? Why go the gaming route? How did you come up with that, or why that route for your product?
Yeah, there's two main reasons, and you've heard me talk about them a little bit before, but right now, students are so bored in our classrooms. They're so bored. When you look at how curriculum and how they learn, through PowerPoints and videos and everything else, most of these resources do not compare to the exciting engagement of applications like Fortnite or Roblox or Minecraft, Grand Theft Auto, NBA 2K22, The Sims. So the first thing was we have to leverage emerging technology in order to change this industry. But when you look at immersive technology, or you look at the idea of you being in a video game and being able to touch things and feel things, now all of a sudden you're bringing learning to life, where if you're a learner struggling with dyslexia, then now all of a sudden, because you can visually see the numbers, you're able to understand placeholder value a lot faster than you would from a textbook. But the last point, and I think this is the main point that you'll continue to hear from me about access and equity, is right now in New York City, there's about 900,000 students enrolled in their public education system, and they have a goal of getting 30,000 apprenticeships to those students. So when you talk about access and equity, what an accessible and equitable world looks like to me is if every high school and community college student in America has access to an apprenticeship. And the fact is, there's just not enough resources in any of our companies to provide that. But you can put one avatar, one virtual headquarters, one simulation in a video game, and now all of a sudden, what was only accessible to a few is accessible to millions, if not billions, of people around the world. So as far as why we chose a video game, student engagement right now in classrooms, excuse my language, but sucks. The outside world like Disney and Netflix and Roblox are out competing our students' attention. Then last but not least, there's just not enough systems in the world to make sure that all of us are prepared for the workforce. So we felt like an immersive video game was the best way to do that.
All right, that makes sense. So staying with what educational games are about, so don't know, not my area of expertise. I like them. And of course, I have children and adult children that play them still, but my grandkids, I've got from 10 to 2.5, and very engaged. They learn a ton. So how do you ensure that we know that the games are going to be both engaging, but also that they're pedagogically sound?
Well, at Stemuli, the way we ensure that is by working with some of the most informed researchers across the United States. So we have a lot of partnerships with research institutions, particularly in Dallas, Fort Worth, like Southern Methodist University, University of Texas at Dallas. I could go on with the list, but these folks have spent their entire career studying how do you make immersive games pedagogically sound and how do you make them engaging. And so really we decided, why do we have to run into walls for problems that people have already solved? And working with those researchers helps us do that.
Great. Good partnership. So let's bring this together and that together and see what you get. So I'm a teacher. Why would I use your product?
If you're a teacher, you would use our product because you care. And what do you care about? You care about bringing learning to life. You understand that what a kid is doing every day in the classroom has a direct correlation with the amount of income they're going to be able to earn from their families. It literally is going to shape what do they call the fulfillment that they'll have for the rest of their lives. And so ultimately, a lot of the teachers that have signed up to use our products have said, we can do better by our kids than the current products that are out there. So it's like they have literally leaned in and said, I want to meet kids where they are. And I'm not only about systems that are helping make my job easier. It's about the kid.
So coming to a little bit of what I hear from folks who are more hesitant to jump in, what do we say or like how do we, I don't know, what do we say to, it's like, how do we engage in conversation with folks who say, my kid has too much screen time already, too much screen time. I don't want more screen time. How do we engage them in this conversation?
That's one of my favorite remarks, actually, because what you're admitting is that kids are already engaging in these video game platforms or in screen time more than they should. And then you're leaving the door open for me to say, if they're going to be engaging in these technologies, wouldn't we much prefer that they're learning while they're engaging in these technologies? And through our data dashboards, I can show you everything that they're learning as they spend time in the platform. So that's the response back to too much screen time.
Great. And I think that opens a door. That opens a door to the conversation of, so, okay, what is your kid? What is your child? What is your student engaging in? And what are they learning at the same time? So maybe then we replace this with this and then see what it is. So I like that. So the other thing that I often hear is that companies are seeking employees with more than technical skills to do on a job. They want employees with soft skills or what some people call good communication, interpersonal skills, leadership, collaboration, teamwork. And especially with this move like off of Zoom back to the office, that's getting a lot more play right now. So it's like, no, we need to be engaged face to face. How does your product promote those sorts of skills?
One thing that I'm going to put all of us back in the shoes of like our first corporate job or our first internship or apprenticeship, where we're walking into an environment that's completely unlike our university or our high school, and we've never been there before. So what we know now, because of the diversity at tech companies, we know that if somebody like me was to walk into those spaces, the first thing that's going to happen is I'm barely going to see anybody else in the room that looks like me. If I haven't been outside of my own zip code because of where I grew up, a lot of the things I'm going to see are going to be so new to me, whether that's like the cool lunchroom, whether it's the game room, the nap pods, any of that stuff is completely new. And so when I step into that environment, I'm uncomfortable. I'm clammed up. I'm not talking to anybody. I am not myself in showing up fully at work. And so when you think about the soft skills and everything else, what an opportunity to help people feel like they belong in a corporate space years before they ever walk into the space. And then when you think about this video game world, and video game research, they talk about like if you're dressed up as an alien in the game, you are comfortable failing because you don't feel like you're failing as an individual. And so now all of a sudden you have a safe space where you're able to show up, you're able to engage with an avatar in the game, and then you're going to get feedback on how you introduce yourself, all within an environment that feels safe for you. So as far as the essential skills, you do need more than technological skills, but I would even argue that we need you to bring the fact that you love music to the table and that you're really interested in arts, and maybe you are a world history buff to the table, because for us at Stemuli, the employees that perform the most and are the most productive are the ones that have the most diverse skill sets. And they're applying like out of the box thinking into a job that previously was done, just in a very mundane way.
So you've been doing this for a minute. You've had a pretty good large sample size of folks involved. So can you share any success stories of students who've benefited from using Stemuli?
Yeah, I would love to. So we started working with Conrad High School back in 2016, actually. So it's a very long-standing relationship. And in 2016, Conrad had their first class of what's called a PTech student. So these students are in 9th grade, and they're set to graduate high school with their associate's degree. Over 4 years, some of these students actually helped us create and co-design our platform, but then they began learning on the platform. Now, some of those students, one in particular by the name of Michael, has graduated high school with his associate's degree, and he started making $40 an hour right outside of high school. Now, that's notable, right? Because there's some of us that aren't making $40 an hour, but what's even more notable is the distance that Michael has traveled. So what nobody knows about Michael is that he's never met his biological mother. His dad ended up in the criminal justice system. His high school counselor adopted him, and that's what allowed him to stay within this programming. But without Stemuli, Michael would not have seen what's possible. He would not have persisted through his education. Now he's in college. He's about a year away from graduating with his bachelor's degree. And now, he's set to come back and work for our organization. So the same organization that benefited him and getting him on his pathway, he'll be developing video games with us and giving back, to the rest of the world.
What an amazing lived experience he brings personally, and an amazing lived experience with your product.
Yeah, absolutely. It just works all the way around.
It does. And it's pretty hard to deny that. It's pretty hard to deny someone when you're faced with any sort of question or opinion or wondering, when someone is just that close to every aspect of not only what you're trying to do, but what you're also creating.
And one thing that just on impact, when you think about the story of Stemuli, the main difference for Michael and the rest of the students within that school district that rely on Stemuli is they have a place to come back to. So a lot of students, they're using some great technology, they're interacting with great principals. All of these people care about them when they're in high school. But as soon as they graduate, those students now become other people's problems, if you will. But our platform stays with them. And as soon as they need an additional resource or they need to connect back to home and continue growing, they have a place to come back to.
Very important. Very important to have that sense of belonging and sense of chosen family and chosen allies. So does my heart great. All right. So as we're wrapping up here, I would love to hear from you. What do you see as the biggest opportunity for Stemuli and the biggest opportunity in the future for Taylor?
Again, killing it with the questions. The biggest opportunity for Stemuli is to become a school.
So I need to stay in touch about that. I would love to be part of that.
Hey, let's do it.
That sounds incredible. That sounds incredible. Love that opportunity. Oh my God.
So our target is becoming the nation's largest school and really like the world's largest school.
Wow.
So that's the biggest opportunity for Stemuli. And as far as the biggest opportunity for myself, almost every night when I go to sleep, my prayer to God is to help me do the greatest amount of good for the greatest amount of people. And so in my second life, if you will, after Stemuli is successful, after maybe we've gone public or like earned billions of dollars, is to then become like the venture capitalist that's investing back in businesses that previously were overlooked, just like, Stemuli has been overlooked at times. But there's a visual image I want you to have in your head of like who Taylor is in the future. And the visual image that comes up for me is when you think about Princess Diana and you think about her going into different countries across Africa and touching people at the time that had AIDS or HIV well before anybody understood what was going on. She was there and she knew that even though these folks were dealing with something that we barely understood anything about, that they were still human and that they still needed her presence there to kind of shepherd them in. So as far as the biggest opportunity for me is as I gain more resources myself, it's completely pouring that all back into the world.
I have no doubt that both of those things are going to happen. You put it out there, you manifest it, and you are the kind of woman that just says, yes, go, okay, left, right, go. So I have no doubt that we'll be hearing about both of those things and reading about you as well. So Taylor, if folks wanted to get in touch with you to find out about you, your journey, and or Stemuli, what should they do?
If you want to hear or learn more about myself or Stemuli, you can engage with us online. I do answer and respond to LinkedIn messages, but our entire team is open and flexible to connecting with you. So our email addresses are our first name @stemuli.net. And then you can also reach me on Instagram and any social media channel at Miss Taylor Shead.
Great. All right. Thank you so much for taking time and sharing about you and sharing about Stemuli. I truly enjoyed this conversation and I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And that wraps up this episode of They Are Waiting for Us. If you've enjoyed the show, please take a moment to subscribe so you can get the notifications when new episodes drop. Also, if you could spare a minute, I would greatly appreciate it if you could leave a review to help others like yourself discover the show. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.
This has been They Are Waiting for Us. If you want to learn how to create economic opportunity through equal access to quality education and create an extraordinary learning environment focused on everyone realizing their full potential, go to drlisaandrew.com. They Are Waiting for Us is a production of Forbes Books.